Pisgah National Forest. What is an evergreen forest? An evergreen forest is a forest that contains evergreen trees. Evergreen trees include live oaks, holly, spruce, and hemlock trees. In an evergreen forest, most trees are not deciduous, meaning they typically do not lose their leaves at any point throughout the year, which is where they got the name evergreen. So, in Pisgah National Forest, it is a beautiful national park located in North Carolina. Most of the forest is considered a temperate rainforest, and it's also an evergreen forest. So the forest spans 500,000 acres of hardwood forest, whitewater rivers, waterfalls, and many, many trails. According to the USDA, this national forest is home of the first tract of land purchased under the Weeks Act of 1911, which led to the creation of the national forests in the eastern United States. It is also home of the first school of forestry in the United States, now preserved at the Cradle of Forestry in America Historic Site, and boasts two of the first designated wilderness areas in the East. So moving on to abiotic factors, water or precipitation. Annually, temperate rainforests can receive between 150 to 500 centimeters of rainfall, which is quite a bit. Pisgah National Forest is home to Horse Pasture River, as well as Looking Glass Falls. I used to go there a lot with my family. Temperatures rarely exceed 80 degrees Fahrenheit and typically don't reach freezing. So, in terms of Fahrenheit, we're looking at around 30 to 80 degrees. And fires are very rare in temperate rainforests, mainly because of the moisture availability. It's very rare that fires will spread at all because of how wet it is. Unless it's like a large man-made fire, then it might. So another abiotic factor is that the soil in temperate rainforests is dark and damp. It has more nutrients than a typical rainforest, because a normal rainforest has trees that suck up most of the nutrients in the soil. Trees in temperate rainforests don't do this, so the soil is more nutrient rich in general. So, the biotic factors. These are the animals, or some of the animals. They include the eastern spotted skunk, which is roughly the size of a squirrel, and it excretes a foul sulfuric spray that protects it from predation. The peregrine falcon, which is able to capture its prey at lightning fast speeds, as it's the fastest land animal in the world. The hellbender, which is a type of salamander, it breathes through its skin, which can be harmful for humans to touch, but the salamander is harmless in nature. It won't attack. There's a common misconception that they're very violent or that they'll try to. They have like venom that'll hurt you really bad. No, it's just if you touch it, you could be harmed. The American beaver, it gnaws trees in a circular motion in order to cut it down and use the wood to create dams and lodges. The rainbow trout lives in very fast moving streams and is highly sought after by fishermen. And the brown trout, which is it's the most aggressive of these three trout species. Next is the brook trout. And these are interesting because when they're outgrown by the other species of trout, they're forced to move into streams that the others don't fit in. That way, it carved out its own little habitat, its own little niche that's like only specific to them in terms of trout, at least. So here are some biotic factors that are plants. So American ginseng is typically used for medicinal purposes. The green pitcher plant has pitchers that act as pitfalls for its prey. The chicken of the woods, which got its name because it's an edible mushroom that many believe tastes like chicken. And the eastern hemlock, which is a tree. They're very large trees that their wood is used for just different like lumber products and things like that. So here's a list of insects in the Pisgah National Forest and temperate rainforest in general. The pine webworm, the gypsy moth, bagworms, southern pine beetle, black turpentine beetle, Cyrex wood wasp, Pale's weevil, twig girdlers, and hemlock woolly adelgid. I don't know how you say that. So here are some niches and habitats of 5 different animal species. So the American beaver, its niche is crafting dams and lodges out of wood. It kind of cuts around them, like I said earlier, in a circular motion, cuts down the trees, and is able to create these very impressive structures made out of wood. And its habitat are these structures that they create. The hellbender, it's interesting because it acts as both predator and prey, and is only found in like very specific, swift and narrow streams. So it's somewhat easy for people who are trying to find these to find them because they have a good sense of where they are. And like I said, they live in narrow streams. The eastern spotted skunk plays an important role in insect control, and it lives in tall grass prairies, wooded areas, and rocky areas. The rainbow trout, which is highly aggressive and competitive, has a strong grip on the resources that other fish fight over, um, and it lives in the freshwater. And the brown trout, which employ different spawning locations and adaptations to exploit the niches of other organisms, and that lives in cool freshwater. So, a predator prey relationship that happens in temperate rainforests, uh, excuse me, is raccoons and small mammals as a prime example, because, well, I mean, obviously the raccoon is the predator, the small mammals are the prey. We know this because when the reason this is a good example of this is because when the population of small mammals decreases, so does the raccoon population, and it corresponds like almost exactly. So here we have a food chain. The first order would be chipmunks and squirrels. I'm sorry. Producers. We start with the producers. So like an eastern hemlock, like they drop seeds, um, that the chipmunks and squirrels eat. They collect and eat. Then the owls, hawks, weasels, raccoons, in the second order, eat the chipmunks and squirrels. Then in the third order, there are wolves, lynx, bears, and cougars, which eat the second order. And then once the third order and below dies, or typically just the third order, but then there's decomposers such as bacteria, protozoa, and fungi that finish the job. So here's my food web. I know what you're thinking. How are you able to create such a good one? Can I, you know, can I talk to the guy that made this for you? I know, it's crazy, but just don't worry about that. Um, so we have on the left, we see that small mammals and birds are eaten by both weasels and raccoons. We see that elk and deer are eaten by cougars, and then salmon is also eaten by cougars, bears, lynx, wolves, and then the insects are eaten by woodpeckers and frogs. So a competitive relationship would be the birds and bears in temperate rainforests, and the fact that they compete for fish. The symbiotic relationship is fungi and algae. So, using photosynthesis, the algae provides nutrients for itself and also for the fungi, and in turn, the fungi protects the algae from drying out and shields it from the harsh sunlight. So, here's some extinct and endangered animals. I couldn't really find an animal that was extinct entirely, but the gray wolves are basically extinct. There's like very, very, very few left. Same with the endangered animals. The Appalachian elk toe and especially the red wolves are both endangered. And then some major threats to temperate rainforests everywhere, not only the Pisgah National Forest. The number one threat is deforestation. You know, humans deforesting these places for wood. And then some other threats which are also super serious and important, include mining, global warming, and acid rain. And that's all. So thank you.